Oh yeah. Also, there was one more thing. There was one more wacky thing that happened along the way on the timeline. Boris Johnson called for $500 billion loan to Ukraine in a land lease style thing. That also happened. Boris Johnson, that is always quoted by anti Russian shills as the person that botched the deal, the guy that ruined the amazing deal near the start of the war. Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson was the person that prevented peace. Remember? That's a very common argument that has been floating around in past debates about Ukraine. Boris Johnson, the destroyer of deals. And now Boris Johnson has said, let's land lease Ukraine for $500 billion. Let them buy whatever they want, whenever they want, and then let them pay it off. Which, honestly, if it was done like that, if Ukraine would honestly be allowed to get the newest out of like the best newest equipment quickly in where like in big quantities for and given like $500 billion to just spend and get as much as they can, I actually would not be against that. That would actually be far better than what's been happening now till now, you know. It would be far better than what's been happening till now actually. And of course, a lot of that could be also waived later. So that's another topic. Boris Johnson called for a 500 billion loan to help it end the war and urged the announcement of a date. Oh yes, he also urged for the West to get a grip and actually say a specific date to allow Ukraine to join NATO. Announcements of a date for Ukraine's NATO membership. So a lot of nice things. Boris Johnson's advocating for a lot of nice things. He was happy about Joe Biden's decision to allow Ukraine to use the missiles. Do you think there is any weird game theory disadvantage to announcing a precise NATO join day? No, there isn't. There's only one thing: the perpetual giving Russia de-escalation dominance. They're afraid that that would be too much of an escalatory move to just sort of give Ukraine a specific date of becoming a member, especially since Russia keeps harping that Ukraine cannot join NATO. Ukraine cannot join NATO. And even one of the proposals from Trump that was sort of floated around would force Ukraine to forget about NATO for at least 20 years. So I guess my thought was like, why not move a bunch of equipment into Ukraine and then do like a surprise announcement that they are in NATO? Because they cannot do that. They will never do that as long as Ukraine is in an active conflict. They will never do that. That would if the West suddenly just announced, okay, Ukraine's in NATO now, that would literally mean that Russia would be at war with the entirety of NATO overnight. I see what you mean, Lucy, but I feel like they announced a date and the war is still going on. That date, then NATO will break its promise. Um, I mean, that's easily avoidable. They could always say the date is 3 months after the war ends. There you go. Suddenly the problems sidestepped completely. 2 months after the war finishes, 2 weeks after the war finishes. That's also kind of a specific date, kind of a specific timetable, I guess. What he has cooked up is saying, why not give Ukraine 500? Well, not give. Um, why not loan Ukraine 500 billion USD and let them buy whatever they want and then they can pay it back, Lend Lease. Which honestly, right now, it does not sound bad at all. Quite honestly, especially if we think about the alternatives, the possible alternatives.